All right, so leather bags. We love them, right? They're like essential. But keeping them in tip-top shape, that's a whole other story.
It definitely is.
We're diving deep into some serious leather care secrets today, all courtesy of a website that's all about handmade leather bags. And let me tell you, these folks know their stuff.
Oh, yeah.
They even have me reaching for, get this, a shoe brush.
Interesting. A shoe brush, huh?
Yeah.
Well, one thing that really stood out to me going through all this is how much emphasis they put on really understanding like the specifics of leather.
Right, because it's not all made equal, is it?
Not at all. It's like
Yeah.
you wouldn't treat, say, a silk shirt the same way you treat a pair of jeans. Different materials need different care routines.
Makes sense. And they get really specific about the different types part.
They do.
Like they break it down into categories. Unfinished leather, semi-aniline, which honestly sounds a little intimidating to me.
Right.
And even painted leather, I had no idea.
It can be a lot. But they do have a really clever way to figure out what you're working with. Remember that water test they mentioned?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Is it really as simple as it sounds?
It really is. It's all about seeing how your bag reacts to a single drop of water. Unfinished leather, for example, that hasn't been treated, it's like a sponge, soaks up everything.
Really? So water is like the enemy?
Pretty much. That's where the beeswax comes in as a protectant. And get this, they recommend applying it with, you guessed it, a soft shoe brush.
A shoe brush? See, I never would have thought of that.
It's all about that even distribution.
Makes sense, like when you're polishing your shoes.
Exactly. And speaking of unexpected tools, they had this really interesting tip for dealing with ink stains, of all things.
Oh, no, ink. That's like a nightmare.
Right. But their solution is nail polish remover.
Yeah, hold on. Nail polish remover on a leather bag. You're going to have to elaborate on that one.
Yeah, I know. It sounds a little scary, but they're very clear about using it super carefully. Just a gentle dabbing motion to lift the ink out and never, ever soak the leather.
Okay, that makes me feel a little better. But what about, those everyday oil stains? Like, we've all been there, right? You accidentally brush up against something, or your hand slips after putting on lotion.
Oh, absolutely. For those pesky oil and grease stains, they've got this DIY solution that sounds almost too good to be true. Cornstarch.
Cornstarch, like from the grocery store.
The very same. And the science behind it is actually pretty cool. You see, cornstarch, it acts like a magnet for oil, drawing it right out of the leather. Just sprinkle a bit on the stain, let it sit, ideally overnight, and voila.
Wow, that's amazing. I love those kinds of simple solutions.
Me too. It's all about understanding the why, not just the what.
Exactly. So we've covered ink, we've covered oil, but what about the ultimate fear? The dreaded wine spill. Red wine on a light-colored bag has to be up there on the list of leather disasters.
Oh, for sure.
No.
But don't worry, they've got a solution for that too. Remember that cornstarch we were talking about? Well, turns out it's a multitasking hero. Mixed with a bit of lemon juice, it creates this paste that can work wonders on those stubborn wine stains.
Wait, really? Cornstarch and lemon juice. That's it.
That's it. The lemon juice helps break down the stain, and the cornstarch lifts it away. They do caution that it's best to use this trick on light-colored bags only, though.
Good to know. This is all such good stuff. Okay, so we've talked about preventing stains, but what about those, smells that can develop in a bag over time, that kind of musty odor? What's the deal with that?
Yeah, that musty smell,
Mhm.
it's usually a sign of, well, bacteria.
Bacteria. You mean like living in my bag?
Pretty much. Think about it. We toss all sorts of stuff in there. It's like a breeding ground.
Ew. Okay, I never thought about it that way. So what's the best way to get rid of it?
Thorough cleaning is key.
Hmm.
But, and this is important, they really emphasize not spraying any cleaners directly onto the lining.
Oh. Why is that? I always thought you were supposed to spray the inside of the bag.
You'd think so, right? But it can actually do more harm than good. Remember how we talked about unfinished leather being porous?
Yeah.
Well, that applies to all leather to some extent. Spraying the lining directly can trap moisture against the leather, which basically creates a party for bacteria and mildew.
Yuck. Okay, that makes sense. So no spraying. What about those really strong odors, though? The ones that just don't seem to go away?
They say it's really important to pay attention to the nooks and crannies.
Like pockets and stuff?
Exactly. Pockets, corners, under the flap, anywhere dirt and grime might build up. Those spots are like bacteria havens.
Oh, and don't forget about the handles. I mean, we touch those constantly.
You're right. Good point. They even mention that the natural oils from our skin can actually contribute to odors over time.
Really? I had no idea.
So yeah, giving those high-touch areas a good clean can make a big difference. And speaking of things we definitely don't want near our bags,
Yeah.
mold.
Oh no, mold is the worst. Just the thought of it makes me shudder. How do they recommend dealing with that?
Well, they say if you catch it early, it's not too hard to get rid of. Start by wiping down the affected area with a damp cloth, no soaking obviously, and then let the bag air dry completely.
Air dry, got it. But what if it's like really bad, like the mold's really taken hold?
For those tougher cases, they suggest using a leather cleaner specifically designed to kill mold and mildew. But prevention is always better than cure, right?
Totally. So what about storage? They weren't kidding about avoiding plastic bags, were they?
Nope, plastic is a big no-no. It traps moisture, which can lead to, well, all the problems we've been talking about. Musty smells, mold, mildew, you name it.
So those cloth bags you sometimes get with a new purse, those are good.
Exactly. They're perfect because they let the leather breathe.
Right.
Or even an old pillowcase works in a pinch.
Okay, good to know. Anything else?
Oh, they had one more tip. They recommend stuffing your bags with acid-free tissue paper when you're not using them.
Tissue paper. Really? Why is that?
It helps maintain their shape, prevents creases. Plus, it can help absorb any excess moisture.
Oh, that's smart. Never would have thought of that. So we've covered everyday care, stain removal, mold. But what happens when something more serious happens, like a rip or a tear in the leather? Any advice for that? Ooh, yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah, for major repairs like that, they're pretty adamant about calling in the professionals.
Especially if it's like a really nice bag, right? Or one of those delicate leathers.
Exactly. It's like you wouldn't try to perform surgery on yourself, right?
Right.
Some things are better left to the experts.
Totally. Better safe than sorry, especially with something like a handbag that you love. But honestly, after learning all this stuff, I feel a lot more confident about taking care of my bags.
Right. It's empowering, isn't it?
It is. Like, I actually understand what's going on with the leather now.
You're not just blindly following instructions anymore.
Exactly. Oh, and one more thing I wanted to mention. They said something towards the end that really stuck with me about how all real leather, it was once living, breathing animal hide.
It's a good reminder, isn't it?
It is. Makes you think about these bags a little differently.
They're not just accessories. They're like little pieces of history.
Totally. Well, there you have it. Everything you need to know to keep your leather bags looking amazing. From deciphering those tricky leather types to tackling even the toughest stains.
And don't forget, a little care goes a long way.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. That's it for this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.